Hey guys, Kurt Martin, martinmoney.com. I'll be your tour guide today through the wonderful world of finance. All right, at martinmoney.com, we try really hard to write posts that people are actually interested in, things they're looking for, questions they're asking. And to do that, we use Google Trends and other search engine tools to kind of look at what people are actually searching for regarding different financial topics like Roth IRAs, 401ks, saving for retirement, taxes, budgeting, you name it. Now, a while back, we were researching Roth IRAs and we saw a question. At what age does a Roth IRA not make sense? Now, I kind of just blew right past this one because I thought it was a silly question, but we kept seeing it over and over again. It was a very popular question people were asking, so we decided to answer it. And as we were researching the topic, we found that, there are a lot of scenarios where we could see people begin to ask this question. So today, for your viewing pleasure, we have a video answering the question, at what age does a Roth IRA not make sense? All right, before we begin, I want to address an assumption this question makes from the outset. By asking at what age automatically assumes that there is indeed an age at which a Roth won't make sense anymore. And does that mean contributing to a Roth IRA won't make sense anymore? Or just having a Roth IRA won't make sense anymore? Unfortunately, we don't get the benefit of clarifying the underlying motives from these questions, but for the most part in this post, we will assume people are asking at what point does it make sense to stop making Roth IRA contributions? In which case, I would agree, there probably is a point where making contributions to a Roth IRA doesn't make sense anymore, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's do a cursory review of what Roth 401ks and IRAs are. Now, a Roth account basically allows you to make a contribution on an after-tax basis, meaning whatever you put in there has already been taxed. But once the money is in the account, it grows completely tax-free, and withdrawals are completely tax-free in retirement. The money has to stay there until age 59 and a half, otherwise you'll pay an early withdrawal penalty, but the contributions are always available for withdrawal completely tax and penalty free. Now, Roths particularly help those in lower income tax brackets because they allow you to pay lower income tax when you make the contributions, and you're not subject to any change or any increase in income tax down the road when you make the withdrawal. If there is any objection to using a Roth IRA, it's typically by those with a higher income, and the reason is you wouldn't want to pay income tax now on your contribution only to pull it out later at possibly a lower rate. If you have a higher income, you probably want to use a tax deferred account like a traditional IRA or traditional 401k so you get your tax break now. But there are other characteristics of Roth accounts that might make them less attractive. In particular, I'm thinking how one's age or work situation might impact such a decision. All right, next let's talk about who can contribute to a Roth. All right, the first requirement to being eligible to contribute to an IRA is that you have earned income. You cannot contribute to an IRA in a year in which you do not have earned income. Now, earned income is income from a job. It's not income from dividends or interest from investments. It's not income from a rental property that you own. It's income that you get from a real day-to-day job. Next, you can only contribute an amount that is equal to your modified adjusted gross income for a given tax year, or $6,500, whichever is less, which is another way of saying you can't contribute more than you actually earn in a year. Now, the only exception to this rule is a non-working spouse who can contribute using their spouse's working income. But again, this is for couples who submit their taxes as married filing jointly. Finally, the next step after you have earned income is to not have too much of it. And that's because the IRS puts limitations on your modified adjusted gross income and your eligibility to contribute to a Roth IRA. In 2023, if your income is $218,000 as a married couple filing jointly, or $138,000 as an individual filer, the IRS begins to phase out how much you can actually contribute to a Roth IRA, eventually reaching the point where you can't contribute at all. Okay, so at what age does the IRS stop you from contributing to an IRA? The answer is there isn't one. IRA contribution eligibility is completely tied to income. That's it. So assuming you can contribute to an IRA, can you get too old for it to make sense? The answer is it depends. Now, one of the most attractive aspects of a Roth is tax-free growth. The earlier you can begin putting that to work for you, the better off you'll be in the long run. But the inverse of that is true. The shorter the time frame, the less benefit there is to using a Roth account. Let's kind of spitball this and look at an example to understand this better. Now, let's assume Mr. Counting Dim Days is 60 years old and plans to retire at age 65. In the 5 years between now and retirement, he wants to save money in an IRA, but he's not sure if he should use a traditional account or a Roth. So here are a few scenarios he needs to walk through to understand the best choice for him. First off, let's assume Mr. Days will be in a lower tax bracket in 5 years than he is now. In this case, it's a no-brainer. Mr. Days should contribute to a traditional account and take the tax deduction now and withdraw the money when he's in a lower bracket later. All right, scenario number 2, Mr. Days will be in the same tax bracket in 5 years as he is now. In this case, the choice isn't quite as clear. One fundamental thing you need to understand when you evaluate Roth versus traditional accounts is that if tax rates and rates of return are the same, the value of each will be equal, whether you pay your tax at the beginning of the contribution with the Roth, or whether you pay tax when you make the withdrawal with a traditional. Mathematically, that's absolutely correct. But there's one aspect of this a lot of people overlook. Chances are, when all things are equal, the traditional is probably a little better. The reason the traditional might be the better route is because when you take a deduction for contributions to a traditional account, they come out of your marginal tax bracket or your top tax bracket when you make the contribution. On the other hand, when you make withdrawals in retirement, if you're not working anymore, they begin at the bottom bracket. So in Mr. Days' case, he's in the 24% tax bracket. Let's say he makes a contribution to a traditional account. He'll get a 24% tax break for every dollar he contributes. Down the road, when he turns 65, he'll begin to pull money out of that account, but he won't be working anymore. He won't have earned income that raises his marginal tax bracket. So he'll start pulling those dollars out of the bottom brackets. So it's 10%, 12%, 22%. He'll have a lot of room to make withdrawals before he reaches that 24% tax bracket. That's why the traditional account may be better for him. Scenario 3, Mr. Days will be in the same tax bracket in 5 years that he is now, but he's going to have a monster traditional IRA or 401k balance. In this scenario, Mr. Days should evaluate the benefits of using a Roth IRA. And the reason is, if he has a large traditional IRA or 401k, required minimum distributions may be pretty painful for him when he reaches age 75. Anything he can do to reduce or limit that balance is going to be helpful to him down the road. Now, if you're unfamiliar with RMDs, those are required minimum distributions. They are a requirement the IRS places on traditional accounts like 401ks and IRAs, so they can collect income tax on those balances that have never been taxed before. The purpose is to trigger a taxable event. And if you have a lot of money in those accounts, that RMD could be pretty significant. So by contributing to a Roth instead, Mr. Days wouldn't be increasing the amount of his traditional accounts, and thus his RMDs. All right, scenario 4, Mr. Days will be in a higher tax bracket in 5 years. In this case, it probably makes sense for him to contribute to a Roth IRA. And the reason we're making this assumption that if he's in a higher tax bracket in retirement, he must be pulling a lot of money out of retirement accounts. This ties back into scenario 3. If he has a large account balance that will be subject to RMDs, he should use the Roth to avoid those. With that said, it could vary depending on a lot of other factors, but in all likelihood, if you'll be in a higher tax bracket later, you should probably go with a Roth now. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, I have one request, that you click the like and subscribe buttons below. They're a huge help to our channel. They help it to grow, help us to teach other people about finance. I want to take a second too to talk about flexibility. Tax optimization isn't always the primary driver when you make a decision to use a Roth or traditional account. When you reach retirement age, it's helpful to have lots of different buckets or tax types of accounts to withdraw money from. You want some traditional accounts, you want some Roth or after-tax accounts, and then you want some in the taxable space, like just a regular brokerage account or savings account. By having a variety of accounts with different tax types, it gives you a lot of control over the income you realize. And if you control your income, you can control what you pay in taxes each year. Having a variety of tax buckets also would give you the option to make Roth conversions if you wanted to do that. We made a video about that recently, which we'll link down in the description below, and if we can, we'll put a link above. The important thing to remember is that tax efficiency isn't always the key thing. Sometimes you should evaluate how much flexibility you'd like to have as well. So what if you can't contribute directly to a Roth IRA? Are there other ways to fund one? And so far, we've only considered how someone might want to use a Roth IRA if they're actually eligible to contribute. But you can also access Roth IRAs through IRA conversions, even if you don't have any earned income. We kind of touched on some of this in the scenario before, but once you retire, if you have a large traditional balance, you might want to convert some of those funds to a Roth IRA just to save yourself some money in taxes when you hit RMD age. Now, any conversions you do will trigger a taxable event, but the idea is you can control how much you pay in tax because you decide how much to convert each year. And it's better to pay a lower tax now that you can control than to pay a higher tax later when you reach RMD age and the IRS forces you to take that money out. Finally, let's talk about why you should focus on Roth even in retirement, even after you don't have earned income anymore. Roth dollars are the only dollars you can possess in retirement that are completely tax-free. If you think about HSAs, they're only tax-free as a withdrawal if you use it for medical expenses. Traditional accounts we've already talked about. All withdrawals from traditional accounts are subject to income taxes. Roths are the only one that you have complete control over and no tax liability for anything you do with them. And when you think about tax-efficient withdrawals in retirement, Roths are always the account that's saved for last because they're most efficient. And even though we talked about the 3-bucket strategy earlier where you got tax deferred, taxable, and after tax or Roth accounts, if you could have all that in a Roth, that would actually be the best way to go. But odds are you won't be able to do that. Finally, any Roth funds you don't use in your lifetime, you can leave to your heirs. They also inherit those completely tax-free, and if they're named as a beneficiary on the account, they'll have up to 10 years to make the withdrawal, meaning they can leave the account to grow for another decade completely tax-free before they have to remove the money. So what age does a Roth IRA not make sense? I don't think there is one. There may be some tax situations or circumstances that call for the use of a traditional IRA or 401k instead of a Roth account, but you'll never age out of a benefit from tax-free growth. So if you're eligible to contribute to a Roth and it makes sense from a standpoint, I'd say go for it. A Roth is a great place to save money. Now, like we mentioned in the video, we have some links to some other topics related to this one in the description below. We're also available through our social channels, which are on your screen. As always, I want to thank you for your interest in our videos and your time. God bless and take care.